Alright guys, thank you for coming. We are Team Disney, and my classmates Cody, Suzette, Amanda, Kim, and Sarah are going to be talking to you guys about selection. My name is Steven, and I am going to be giving you guys a little bit of an introduction to selection. So for my introduction, and for my section, I want to use puzzle pieces as kind of a thing that we're going to use to talk about it. So we're going to talk about a bunch of different puzzle pieces, not just puzzle pieces for one puzzle when we're talking about selection. So that's going to bring us to what is selection. So we have an opening in our puzzle, and selection is finding that perfect puzzle piece to fit into our puzzle. So we're going to look for the most suitable candidate to fill our position. So how are we going to do that? We're going to have to recruit a bunch of different puzzle pieces from a bunch of different puzzles to come and want to interview for our position. So we're going to do this with a number of different ways, but it's important that we have a bunch of different puzzle pieces to even think about trying to fill our puzzle piece in the first place. So how are we going to do that? We're going to do that with a job analysis. We need to know what kind of puzzle pieces we're looking for, what color, what shape. Is it an end piece? Is it an inside piece? Is it a big piece? Is it a small piece? So all these things need to be decided before we can move any further. What exactly are we looking for? Then we need to consider other options. We're going to outsource. Are we going to actually hire someone new? Are we going to share resources from another department? We're just going to take two other puzzle pieces and make them bigger to fill our gap. So that's something that we need to consider before we even decide what we want to do. Selection is only going to apply for us if we are going to use a new hire. So if we're going to hire someone new, then selection will apply and the steps that follow will apply, but not if we're going to use contingent labor, outsource, or anything like that. So what are the steps to selection? First is screen, second is interview, third is assess and evaluate, and fourth is select and other. These are general steps that SHRM recognizes for the selection process, and each step has a specific function, and each step we're going to try to gather more information. We're going to narrow that big pool of all the puzzle pieces that we have, and we're going to try to get closer and closer to one perfect puzzle piece that's going to work for our hole in our puzzle. So each step is going to gather more information. Now, just kind of a heads up, this is a general outline that we're going to use for these steps. This isn't a perfect recipe in any sense. Some companies might have more steps, some are going to have less steps, but it's just kind of a general outline for the steps in the selection process. We're going to consider things like education and qualifications, but I want to mention culture. If we're looking for a blue piece, a red piece isn't going to fit. Culture is something that has a big impact on the organization, so that's something that we need to consider. So what if we do pick the wrong color, the wrong person with the wrong culture? It could be up to 1.5 times the salary and costs of that individual for that bad hire. And with the wrong culture, it will have a negative impact on the other employees in the company. Productivity isn't directly related to how happy you are, but it does play a big part. So when we hire the right person, we can increase productivity, job efficiency, and cost efficiency. Obviously, we're not wasting the money on those people that aren't going to fit in our company. So what are some of the costs? Sourcing, recruiters, salary, the staff involved, reference checking and testing, and what a lot of people don't recognize is onboarding and orientation are costs associated with selection. So new and you. Sarah and I both got to participate on the Disney College program. It was a really cool opportunity, a little bit of a background on the college program. We call it the DCP. If you like to work a ton of hours and not get paid at all, it's perfect for you, because you're going to work like a dog and they're not going to pay anything. So each year we have about 50,000 students who apply, and only 12,000 of those 50,000 applicants are accepted. You can work in either Walt Disney World, Florida, or Walt Disneyland, California. So Disney's screening process, I went online, I learned about Disney and the college program, and I decided I was going to fill out an online application. From this application, they decide, well, are you going to get the interview? That would be the next step. So if you do actually get the interview, you're going to get a web-based interview. That's just a program that they have that you run through, and Cody's going to talk about ATS in a second. And if you get through that, you're going to have a phone interview. The phone interview, again, is just narrowing down that pool of puzzle pieces of the candidates that apply. Next, they're going to assess and evaluate. They're pretty strict. They want to know if you're going to be able to work in their show, be on stage for Disney, and be a cast member. The whole time, you're going to check your status online, see how everything's moving along. And then finally, at the end, in their selection process, if you're selected, you're going to have a week to accept or deny your invitation. It's a pretty cool experience. I enjoyed it. I know Sarah had a little bit of a different experience. Anyway, the next thing we're going to get into is going to be the first step, which is going to be screening. That's going to be Cody here in a second. and he's going to get into more of the individual steps. So Cody?
Thank you, Steve. Hi, I'm Cody, and I'm going to be going over screening, which is the first step of the selection process. I'm going to be going through from everything what employers are looking for, how they screen, to what you should do, and what employers are hoping not to see in your application. So the first step of the selection process is to screen the pool of candidates. This involves analyzing application forms like curricula vitae and resumes, and this is to locate the most qualified candidates for the position. Outcomes of the selection screening. You want to identify applicants who fit the minimum selection criteria. You don't want to have somebody who doesn't meet those requirements and waste people's time. And it provides a source of questions for subsequent interviews later on down the road. It provides information for reference checks, and it helps to ensure that line management or other internal stakeholders spend time interviewing only qualified candidates. Again, you don't want to waste people, important guys, people who interviewing candidates that they wouldn't consider interviewing in the first place. Tracking applicants. Many organizations now employ applicant tracking software, ATS. This provides an automated way for organizations to manage the entire recruiting process. From screening to hiring, big or small companies can do it. Depends on what they need. The ATS scans candidate documents for keywords, aligning candidate qualifications with job requirements. They can go into the software and type a qualification that they're looking for and find it quickly rather than going through manually. Some application forms. Application form formats may vary. Regardless of format, an application should be complete and easy to read. If it's uneasy to read, messy, then reviewers might disregard your application as a whole before even getting into it. Curricula vitae and resumes. These both provide an overview of a person's experience and other qualifications, and conceptually similar intent, but have some important distinctions that we're about to go over in these next few slides. Curricula vitae, or CV. A CV is a detailed overview of a candidate's accomplishments. Beginning stages of career might only be 2 or 3 pages long, but later on down the road it might reach double digits. Things included here are honors, achievements, memberships, grants, and things of that nature. A resume. This is a more concise general introduction of the candidate's experience and skills, often modified for each position a candidate applies for to emphasize skills relevant to the position they're applying for, such as work experience and education. What should you submit? You should submit an application form in addition to a CV or resume. A CV or resume provides information that you want the employer to know. An application form provides information that they want to know from you. Some warning signs. Is the applicant overqualified or underqualified for the position? You don't want to waste time or money hiring an overqualified person because they'll probably leave your company sooner rather than later. An underqualified position, they might not fill the job requirements. Is there excessive filler information not related to the position? Is that person trying to just boost their resume with irrelevant facts about themselves to try to make themselves look better? And is the document messy, poorly organized, or complete? Again, the reviewer might totally disregard the application. Does the applicant take too much credit for projects completed by a team? Is that person saying, I did this whole project when there was 15 other people behind him? That would not be a good thing. Does the applicant use vague terms to describe his or her work? And to continue on warning signs, there are many more warning signs that reviewers keep an eye out for. These warning signs, if caught, are not deal breakers. You don't want to miss out on a high qualified candidate because he had a little red flag in his application. So for new and you, I manage a pizza shop, and the owner wanted an experienced cook to work for him in the kitchen. I handled the hiring process, so I screened a bunch of resumes and got it down to a smaller sample to interview. And the screening, the applicants' resumes allowed us to only interview applicants that had enough experience. Without the screening, we'd have interviewed over 100 people, but we were able to get it down to just 25. And more than likely, we are all screened after every application or resume we hand in. It could have either helped us or hurt us depending on if we had the information an employer wanted. And I hope this little presentation I did gave you some more insight on how screening goes down on the employer side. And in conclusion, screening is a crucial part in the hiring process. Applicant tracking software provides efficient and fast screening. You can type that keyword in there, find it quickly, right off the bat, find who you're looking for. And finally, screening provides a method to look for what you want and discard other applicants that have warning signs or lack of experience that would make an applicant unsuitable for that position. It saves an incredible amount of time and allows employers to find exactly what they're looking for in order to interview that employee. Thank you. Next up, we have Suzette.
Thank you, Cody. We're going to talk about step 2, the interview process, and in the interview process, how the selection affects the interview process. The selection is a way to probe interest in order to determine how well the candidate meets the needs of the organization. It's usually done by a manager or HR. There's a series of questions that are asked to determine if the candidate meets the needs of the job opening. It is the most relied on procedure in the selection process. There is the pre-screening interviews, and it's usually 20 minutes long. It's conducted by Human Resources, and it's usually used with an organization that has a high volume of applicants. You also have the in-depth interview. The in-depth interview is 1 hour or more. It's usually done by line management, and it may be divided into several in-depth interviews. These are a little more detailed and are a little more strict. There are common types of interviews. The structured interview, which questions are preset. There is the unstructured. The questions are not preset. It's more like a day-to-day conversation, but the interviewer will have some predetermined categories. Become familiar with the duties and requirements of the open position. Be prepared to answer general questions about the organization. We have fundamental recommendations from SHRM, also to make sure that you formulate and organize the questions in the order that you're going to be asking. Make sure that you review the candidate's application, the CV, and their PMF. You want to make sure that you're just as prepared as the candidate when you're interviewing them. Tips to increase the likelihood of an effective interview: you want to establish a rapport to open lines of communication. You also want to listen carefully so that you can hear what it is that you're looking for. And you want to make smooth transitions from one topic to another. This way it puts the applicant at ease. You want to observe nonverbal behavior. You want to take notes, and you also want to conclude the interview with the next steps. Is there going to be a pre-screening process, a background screening, and that kind of thing? You want to turn in your questions. You want to make sure you turn each skill set and characteristic into an open-ended question. You want to facilitate sharing their experience through expertise, and you also want to lead the candidate to give detailed information about the position. If you want to know how adaptive the candidate's going to be, then you're going to ask them, tell me a recent experience at work where you experienced a significant change and how you reacted. If you want to know about how of an outstanding achievement, then you want to make sure that you ask, what do you consider your most outstanding professional achievement and why? You want to also make sure that on SHRM.com or .org, there are sample questions. So if you get stuck and you're not sure which ones to ask, you can go online and get some samples, and this way pick the best ones for you and your organization. You want to make sure that your questions are adaptive. How well does the candidate think on their feet? You want to make sure that they're analytical. Can they brainstorm? Are they able to problem solve? And you also want to make sure that they facilitate communication. Is there going to be interaction between the candidate and the employees? There is interview bias that we have to be aware of. Make sure that you don't do stereotyping. If a woman comes in, don't assume she's going to want a desk job. She might want to work outdoors. There are some more types of interviewer bias. First impression error, where you give more credence to where the candidate graduated instead of their skills, knowledge, skills, and abilities. You want to make sure that you are aware of and beware of negative emphasis. If an applicant is unable to make eye contact during the interview and the job does not require, it's a telemarketing position, do not select them because of lack of eye contact. There's non-verbal bias. That's when the applicant occasionally taps on the desk, and you find that to be kind of annoying, and you decide not to hire them because they were tapping on the desk. The similar to me era. This is where you select the candidate because they share the similar personal characteristics instead of job-related criteria. As far as interview bias, you want to make sure you have some diversity. The new and you. As an HR representative, I collaborate with managers to make them better interviewers. And once you guys understand